thoughts, our first breath wasn't done. The spirit sunken deep into the ground. Why am I alone? I can't hear my heartbeat. Silence all
Just mirror carnifex. So.
Hello.
Yeah. Hey, Eric.
Hello.
Everybody's in here with you now. We've all joined you.
How cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were just talking about how I went from decent at PK to only having Warden and not knowing how to kill anyone. So
Nice.
So I feel like I've probably seen your picture before, Yaku, but are you this cat? Is this you?
I wish.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. You know,
But no, it's not
dress for the
really.
job you want, sort of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
well,
There you go.
well, welcome everybody back to the weekly milestone. And what I was a little worried this week we wouldn't have much to talk about, but in typical fashion, there's been tons happen in the last few days. So
Yeah, Izia was here for a couple of minutes. She might hop back on.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, Isia might be joining us, maybe not. If she comes back in, cool.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, let's get into it. Do you guys want to talk about some of the other stuff before we get into the big topic?
Sure, whatever direction's fine with
Well,
me.
I
I've
mean,
got
just so we
something to
have.
say about everything here.
I
So
know. I was just saying maybe we could talk about the other stuff while more people come in and stuff. I don't know.
Sure, we should
yeah,
probably save the dreams thing for when and if Izia
Yeah.
pops in, since she's part of that.
So let's talk about
it
stockings.
is early, Wyatt. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's probably
sorry,
my bad.
sorry, dude.
I know how you feel, Wyatt. It used to be early for me too, but I'm an old man now, and I get up at like 8 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning Eastern. So it's kind of middle of the day for me now.
Yeah, it's like 1 p.m. over here now.
Yeah, it's one here as well. I
I have
woke
to
Yeah,
up at
deal
8.
with the kitten, so I am waking up a lot earlier recently.
excellent. That's a good reason to wake up, though.
Yes.
Yeah. By the way, Ector, one of our new Templar, he's a squire. He's I think he's from Achaia, but he's Chrono DBU in chat for anybody that didn't know. But
Oh, right on. I've had some good conversations with Hector.
yeah.
I keep trying to coax him into following Ethne, and maybe I'll get him. Oh, hey!
Hey,
Speak of the devil.
it's a wayward vanguard. She's
You're
in here,
muted.
but muted.
Yeah, she is muted, but she is here. One day. Um. Well, hey, retirement from Achaia. That's a pretty big step, particularly where you have not been here for very long. But hey, I'm glad you're sticking around.
Yeah, me too.
And
We've
We've
been
had
in
a
web a
lot of
bit.
new
I
people
don't think
joining.
we've gotten to interact in character at all, but we've been in web a lot. So
He's very cool. I highly recommend.
I would
We'll
like
have to do a.
I would like to brag that somebody's mentored him already.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him for Lady Ethne. Don't you worry.
I don't know. I've already given him a copy of the holy book, so we'll
yes, the
see.
holy
Actually, I already
2D2.
had him in my congregation, so y'all relate.
Oh no. Well, hello there.
Hello.
All right. So let's talk while we wait again for some more people to wake up and join us in the stream. Let's not start with the giant topic so that everybody misses it, because I feel like last week when we started out by talking about ships, there was more people that came in as we went along, and then everybody wanted us to talk about ships again.
I
So
still have a lot of thoughts about ships.
I mean, me
So
too. We can get into that too, but I wanted to talk a bit about stockings. Um, so yeah, I decided, because like I've worked all these hours at the DMV the last couple months, and I'm working like a dog, that I'd spend a little bit of money on Atolia, and I bought like 20 stockings, and I gave one each to the Templar that were active, and then I hung 4 for myself. And I just gotta say, I really love how genius. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the genius of the decorative gift voucher. The fact that you get a bunch of those for buying stockings, but you can only give them away.
oh yeah,
I
I
find
like
that
this.
really fascinating as far as promos go.
Yeah, that is. I have not yet purchased stockings. Because I haven't started my new job yet. But I think that that's really cool. And it explains why all of a sudden I had people that I don't know who sent them to me, but somebody sent me like 5 out of
Right.
nowhere. And I was like, all right, like you didn't even like take credit for this, so I can't give you anything back.
Right.
But yeah,
But
I think it's a good way to spread the joy.
yeah, like I think you don't see that often where like something you get for partaking in a promo can only be used by giving it away to someone else.
Yeah, and I mean, I think stockings in general, people have been, at least in my experience, very generous. So, hopefully next year I can do the same. It's not really financially viable this year.
I know, right? I'm hoping that I'll get a couple of good paychecks in and be able to do it.
Yeah, in the past 7 or 8 months I've been back, this is like the biggest amount I've spent. So, but I think that stockings are like my favorite promo, though. So
Stockings are definitely the best promo of the year,
yeah,
like any year. That's the thing. Like, if you're gonna make like one purchase the whole year, you save your money and you get your value in the stockings.
yeah, or you give them away to people. I don't know. I like the idea of like spending money for other people. I don't know.
I
Although
do
It's
like
always
getting people
fun, yeah.
gifts.
Yeah.
I had someone message me about it and tell me how they were uncomfortable to receive a gift. I was like, I don't know how that works, but sorry, I guess. Like,
I kind of get that. Just because, it's real money. I always get a little bit kind of iffy on other people spending real money on me, but it's just for like Christmas time and stuff like that, I get it.
I call it the poor person mentality because it's something that I have a lot as well. And I grew up quite poor as a kid, so I think that
It's something I grew up with too. I've gotten better with it like the past few years.
yeah, you have to like sort of work to get over that guilt around money.
It's like it's literally like it's a form of trauma, is what it is.
Yeah.
yeah, but like the person in question, like they didn't realize when they saw it that I had gotten it for like all the active Templar. They thought I was just getting it for them. And I guess that somehow made them uncomfortable, but I explained it to them because they DM'd me about it on Discord. And they were like to the point where they're like, I don't want our characters to correspond anymore. This made me uncomfortable. I'm like, what? And then I explained it to them and they're like, oh, like they kind of eased up on that after that. So I don't know.
I mean, it's not something I've experienced myself, but I know some people, and obviously, Eric's, you're not this sort of person. Some people can be very weird about buying gifts for other people in online games.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about stockings because obviously they've been super successful in the past. They've been super successful this year, obviously, because we can all see the city and guild logs. So
I think part of what is making them so successful, like they're successful every year, and I think it does boil down to people get more generous this time of year, and you want to do something nice for the people that you spend a lot of time with. I think the reason that they're so successful this year, though, is more because the returns you're getting are worth the money you're spending.
Right.
In years past, that wasn't always the case.
right.
I got a stocking last year that it was a fancy one too, that it was almost entirely like pills and commodities.
Yeah.
And at the time, we didn't have mining or any commodities. At the time, I was like, okay, this kind of sucks, but I did need steel. So I'll take it. But now you're actually getting something worth the money that somebody put into it. And I think that that's going to make people purchase them.
Yeah.
It certainly has made me go, well, do I want to spend some of my money to thank people that that are part of my RP experience?
Oh, she's back.
We
Huzzah!
very briefly lost someone, I think.
Yeah. Looks like she's back. But yeah.
on my phone because I had been picking up groceries and I just got home to my laptop. So
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
there
was
you go.
No
going back to the
worries.
computer.
Cool. Yeah. So that's just a little bit about stockings. I guess now that that's out of the way, if you guys want to get into the big topic, we can. I don't know. Otherwise, they're just
I'm fine with any order.
I kind of wanted to talk
It's still kind of
eventually.
early, so
Eventually talk about like what do we think's going to happen for year 500. Do we think that any of the world events currently going on lead to that? Is the celebration going to be separate? Is it going to be tied in? What do you guys think?
I just have more general thoughts for year 500.
Do you?
Um,
Go ahead.
1 second, the kitten needs to do something.
Everyone's gonna die.
Yeah, Hector's taking the pragmatic route there, or the
I mean,
practical route.
it does seem like we have to save the world like every few weeks. So for 500, maybe we really have to save the world.
Yeah. Maybe a giant robot's brain is going to get on a really cool ship, and we're all gonna.
I think that either they're going to try and drag out the Amon thing until it hits, or I think that we could see one of another because so far, in terms of Albany gods, we've been getting a lot of the like. It's been a while since we've had one of the fundamentals, and there aren't a ton of them left for us to deal with. But the ones that we have right now, there is we haven't met Dajani yet. The guardian of the first flame, like their equivalent of Damariel, essentially.
Right, the spirit.
And I think that it could be very interesting to introduce that, and she seems like the big one. She to the Mun, they called her the first mother, so she is one of the big gods. So I could see that being a way to sort of like, this is a huge year for us in terms of the game, and which then also creates this this conflict, because the first mother and spirit and light and all that is also the source of, to my understanding, her plane is the source of Dwamvi. So it creates a big conflict. So I think it is going to be one or the other. There could be something entirely unrelated to El Beatty for all I know. It could wind up being something just totally... we have enough conflict on our own plane that we don't necessarily need conflict from other planes. But I could see it having something to do with one of the major gods of the El Beatty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
just take
I
a
would-
conflict break
sorry.
and have a party. That would be nice.
Yeah, like
Right?
just it'll be a totally chill year with nothing wrong.
Yep.
they could just bring in the god of the arcane, because something the abyssal, when he escaped, he already beat up most of the Sapiens pantheon, so maybe he can force us to get along.
It's
I'll draw the abyssal.
He
Yeah.
There
puts
it
us
is.
all in a big get along shirt, which is really what any of the El Beatty do when they show up. Like, the gods stuff us all into one big "this is our get along" shirt, and we have to get along.
Nice. Wyatt said in chat, everyone is going to be memory wiped and turned into farmers. Sorry, gang.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
You know what? It'll
That
be
sounds-
it'll be relaxing.
Yeah, that sounds like a mental break.
Rowan says in chat, maybe we'll resolve the conflict in the Shattered Vortex or bring it to the Prime Plane. Well, the Shattered Vortex is like takes place in like, well, kind of the past that was frozen into place, I believe is what the lore was on it.
I'm gonna be honest. I think, one time been in the Shattered Vortex. I have no idea what's going on in there.
Well,
It's just kind of, it exists. I'm like, yeah, cool.
So-
there it is.
I know a little bit about it because whenever it was released, my old character was actually the Guildmaster of the Indrani, and it had a little bit of a tie-in with the Indrani because the Indrani are the the other faction inside. And And to my recollection, what it is essentially like the shattered vortex exists like in a pocket of time that's frozen into place, and everything inside of it is like characters and NPCs from like centuries or whatever thousands of years ago that are all frozen in place. So yeah, it's like Rowan said, it's basically a time locked eternal war. So I don't think you could ever really like resolve the conflict there, just because of the way it was designed.
Well, we are dealing with a big time anomaly
Yeah, I
right
mean, I
now.
guess.
So,
Oh,
in
you know
theory.
what? That I didn't even consider. Is that the confluence is going to be the event for year 500 because
Yeah,
nothing else has happened with it yet. Like
Well, it's
Copperhead,
supposed to pop up around Keppery,
is
is my
it?
understanding. That's what Copperhead said back when Copperhead was still more lucid. So I would assume that's still the plan.
Hmm. I wonder if that's the case now with him gone though. Like maybe it was something that he was going to do at that point in time to it, but now that he's not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of seemed, at least from interacting with Copperhead, it kind of seemed like they were just there to observe.
Actually,
Um, and like see what happened with it, and maybe they had some big secret plan to do something with the confluence once it was ready, because it is important to note that our god showed up and Copperhead hightailed it out of there,
Well,
yeah.
there was
knowing that it's outdated.
actually, I believe, I don't want to misword it, but I believe it was something like Copperhead had a directive um, to help bring back its maker or something along that lines. And its maker, as we found out, was an Albanian god, the Endless.
yeah,
Um,
Akros.
Incros, yeah.
Right here.
And but that was like told to me like early this morning was that he did have a directive like to help try to bring him back.
Yeah, the thing that's curious to me is Ias had kind of pointed this out to me. Um, Copperhead mentioned Calchos a lot, which doesn't show up in any help searches or anything. And so I think some of us assumed that Calchos was their maker, or maybe where it came from, and didn't mention Akros at all. So I was kind of curious about that.
Right.
How, like, what is Calchos then?
I don't have an answer for Calchos. The Acros bit though is what Isio was actually trying to drag Iku to go see the other night when he
He was busy having a tantrum.
yes, he was busy having a glorious tantrum.
Rasani didn't get involved in too much of this stuff because I would not count technology and that sort of thing among her attributes. Uh, she's more of a city leader points and says, "Go hit that." She goes, "All right."
Yeah.
So yeah,
More Captain America than Iron Man.
I definitely, yeah, that very sweet sort of bumpkin where it's like, oh, I kind of understood that reference. Yeah, but I will say it's been interesting to watch this whole thing play out just from like the sidelines though, because like every day I would wake up to poor Izzy being like, "Come over here," with new information about this thing, and it changed all the time. So that was really interesting because it was technology we didn't understand. Things seemed to constantly be in flux, and that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get involved in any of it too much. I just kind of watched everybody's reactions and what people were saying about Spine's Reach and to help them or not, and et cetera, and I just kind of stayed quiet about it because, you know.
Helping them. Everybody was saying we were helping them and we were like pointedly not helping them.
Right.
The only thing, to my knowledge, that we offered to do was to get their children out of Spine's Reach. And they had already done that, so we didn't even have to do that. But that had been the only thing that we said we were going to, because children didn't decide to get born in Spine's Reach. They were just born there.
Right. And then
Like, you like pointedly told everybody that every adult in Spine's Reach is counted part of the desperate as far as Dar is concerned, because he defines the desperate not only as the undead, but those who support undeath even through complacency. And by living in Spine's Reach willingly, children don't have that like willingness, they just, this is where their parents put them. But by living in Spine's Reach, like this is your choice of where you're living, you are complacently agreeing with coexisting with the undead. And therefore, she had no notion towards saving anybody from that, except for young children.
Ironically, when this debate was brought up in like a kind of private thing with Aku, he was a little bit more merciful because from his perspective, it's like if you're born somewhere and you grow up there and you never really have a chance to learn another way, why would you leave? Right?
Certainly.
So he was kind of like, Spine's Reach absolutely brought this on themselves. I don't think I'm going to help Copperhead destroy Spine's Reach because there's a lot of collateral damage in there. But I'm also definitely not going to help Spine's Reach destroy Copperhead. So
You see, and that's where we are, and we were getting painted like we were going out of our way to help them, because we had previously given our word that we would help them if there was a global threat, like they helped us, with the serpent. Although I will also say that when that happened, we went out of our way to ensure that nobody a shadow was on that ship. Like anybody that was helping was like
They were
watching.
with Kalina and I in the city.
Yeah. And so all of this like misinformation that's running around.
Well, I think it's I think in terms of that, it's like it's all just RP based. Like I think like we were actually talking about this before the stream got started, Yaku and I, where it makes sense that Durin, that only really cares about Dendara and the cycle and the rhythm, would see us even offering to get children out of Spine's Reach as aiding and abetting people who are against the cycle. Because they don't have the same, like, in my understanding of Durin and everything that, every conversation Rasani's ever had with somebody from Durin, there isn't as much of a focus on the morality of your actions as much as they are in terms of, how do they serve the rhythm. So,
And that's
yeah,
good, except for when the accusations started happening. We hadn't even offered that yet. We hadn't even discussed it amongst ourselves.
so I've always kind of explained the thing Rasani was talking about as if Aku sees a forest on fire, and it's not like a good fire, right? Because eventually
yeah,
everything needs to burn.
needs cleansing, yeah.
If Aku sees a forest on fire and Aku sees a village on fire nearby, he's not gonna like the choice. He's gonna go help the forest first. The village, like those people dying, isn't good. It's not good for the cycle. But the wilds always end up taking priority.
But interesting, because when I played a druid, it was the wilds always, they take care of themselves in the end. And that piece of land that burned, it's gonna, those ashes are gonna nurture it and it's gonna regrow.
Yeah, that's why I tried to specify like it's not a natural fire. It's not like something that's gonna take care of itself.
That's fair.
If it's in that specific situation where you have to pick one to save from whatever threat is coming, then he's gonna pick the wilds. He won't like it. If he could save both, he would. Forced to pick, he will let the people in the village die.
Well,
Right.
do we want to get into the dreams now? No? Yes, maybe?
I
Ugh.
mean, we can. I definitely think that we could definitely come back around to, because I get the feeling like just from Iaku and I talking, it seems like we could both talk forever about the Copperhead situation. So if we want to circle back around to that afterwards, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Well, all I know is that about the Copperhead situation is that Rosani's new nickname should be Rough Stone Wall. So
Yeah.
The death sites were really funny.
Yeah, the death sites were great. I think that that the rough stone wall should have a Paragon statue on our Paragon Way.
right.
I also because I wasn't there for the event of actually being involved in Cogger's mind, but I will say that it's incredibly impressive the work that clearly went into Cogger's mind. I know why I would have loved to have been, but like as I was saying again to Yaku, is like it's only fair because we had a cool ship that we kept away from Shadow because it was our ship and we don't want them to know how to kill us, and or ruin our ship or sabotage it. So it only makes sense that they would then also keep their cool toy away from us, So I wasn't gonna try and force my way into an event where I had clearly been asked to kind of stay out of it.
Plus, Dwayne did go inside technically, so
I suspect you might have had a little bit of an easier time going in if you hadn't also raided the city.
yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't take part in any of it because I was. I think Isia was in web for this. I was waiting in a video call queue for 2 hours while all of this was going on, and then it got to less than a minute left for 15 minutes, and then kicked me and said rejoin, and wanted me to wait another 3 hours 21 minutes. So basically, I wasted my time and also missed the event. So that kind of sucked.
Yeah, I've also just been kind of logging off, about 9 p.m. Eastern because I'm old and tired.
But yeah, I mean, my thing is, I'm a little sad that it was so tied to Copperhead because I felt like Copperhead was introduced as kind of like a very helpful figure.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have more involvement in like Copperhead's eventual fate, but Copperhead isn't dead as far as I know. Copperhead just kind of left Spine's reach. So I think for me, it's just kind of like I totally get it. It's the Dawnbreaker equivalent, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not really expecting to go in or be there, and I mean the fact that people did have.
Did we
The
lose
cat
you?
stepped on my mute button.
Oh.
The fact that people from Dwayne did have the opportunity to sneak in and try to do what they were going to do. I mean, there was the chance potentially. I mean, they were killed by an NPC, but there was the chance potentially to do something. So it looked very fun from a distance. I'm kind of sad I wasn't able to participate, but that is also because I had important out of character stuff to deal with. So it's not really on anyone that I couldn't participate.
We did get to see Copperhead roast Iacid for what it's worth.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, like I looked it up on Globals. I wasn't actually like online when that happened, but I looked at Globals and the line about his survival chance being mediocre, like that made me laugh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
I think the plus side to Dawnbreaker, because Hector is pointing out that it was much more like visibly epic and going on in the world. I think the plus side too to that was that we also got to have that confluence defense thing going on at the same time. I think that
yes.
Yeah, they basically got to hack his brain when it came to the Copperhead, which was cool. But I'm not mad about missing it or not getting to do it, because like it's great that I also do hope that like Bloodlock and Durin get like their own big thing like the Spawns Reach and Anorian did.
So Bloodlock recently had the events with like Villamo.
That's true.
Like the Throne Keeper events. So I think Durin is definitely do something, but maybe Bloodlock's already had theirs.
Yeah, I
if I
forgot
can
about that.
Also be honest, I was kind of hoping Copperhead won and then they would redo some of Spine's Reach's streets a little
Right.
bit, because that place is so confusing.
I
cannot
thought
get
that's what this
anywhere.
was. Like, Izzy and I had spoken that we kind of thought that this was going to be an excuse to redo Spine's Reach's map.
I once went up into yeah,
It-
exactly, justice for Copperhead.
Ictennis says in chat, "Justice for Copperhead" in all caps.
Yeah, I've been into Spine's Reach, a couple of times shopping for stuff, but I once went up in there.
I'm not welcome in Spine's Reach.
Right. I once went in there on an alt, trying to find a specific stable inside a player house, and oh my god, the level of overlap on the map. I could not find anything until someone just found the Venom and gave it to me, and I was like, thank god.
I've been exploring. I have like 3% left of Spine's Reach, and I just cannot find it. Like, I'm convinced it's not on the map.
It could be because the Sisson have part of their guild hall that you can't reach unless you're a Sisson.
Right.
But
So
guild supposed to count for exploration.
I thought they did.
I wonder how exploration works too with when guild halls, no matter who they are, add rooms on as part of like an org request. Do those
Right.
do those
Yeah,
end up
because the
counting
Sentinels
or
have that whole crypt now.
I really don't think they count, guys. Like,
Guild
'cause
halls do not count
Ah.
as Chaos Squid.
Yeah. I have 99% in Durin, and I've never been in this entire guild hall except for a few rooms.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I've never been in the Shaman Guild Hall, and I don't think it
Isia was
counts
actually a
against me.
shaman when I started, but like nobody even remembers that now.
Right. When was that? When did you make the character?
I made her in 2014 or 2015. I think it was 2015. No, 16. 16. It was right after I had my last baby because something had happened like while I was in the hospital having my baby. My character's partner cheated on her, and I was like, I'm done with this. And while I was all hopped up on hormones, I retired my character. So I made Isia after that.
Well, there you go.
That is such a scummy time to do it. I know it's RP, but wow.
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I appreciated the most about the Copperhead stuff is that a lot of the conflict, I can only go off of what Aku knows in character, obviously, or
Right.
what Aku's been told in character. A lot of the conflict and like the arguments between characters has felt very natural to me in that regard. Like, of course, people are going to be mad at Aku and Eosid for telling Copperhead about the Hekathi's plans to distract it with the Remnant, because Copperhead then decided, cool, I'm going to go hang out with the Remnant then. Of course, that makes total sense. Aku doesn't see it that way. And then, some people have said, like, have implied Aku is then therefore working for the Dracothi, or is somehow, like furthering their goals. And if there's any way to get him into a very unreasonable anger, that would be it. So I think definitely people have said it in a way that it could be interpreted more positively as like, you didn't do it on purpose, but you did help them. But
yeah, Isia was
he ended up when you say that to him, he's going to take it the worst possible way, basically.
Isia was actually trying to give Acid the benefit of the doubt, and she's all like trying to calm Kalina down about it and be like, hey, he didn't know this thing was connected to Albeidi, and I don't think he meant to help the Hekathi at all. And she's like trying to talk him down, and then the next day, he's like clinging to his guns, like shouting and stuff after he already has all this information. I'm like, Isia's over here like trying to stop this from being like a church or Stein level incident where, everybody like pretty much tried to eat them for like a week or more. And he's just like not helping his case. So
yeah, it's exactly what Wyatt said in the chat too, which is, implying its solo would work with the Dracothi is in a lot of cases immediately going to send them into irrational levels of anger. So
Honestly, for Rasani, it's the Dracothi thing. Uh, doesn't even come to her mind because she kind of is like, I would assume that they were because they were fighting Dracothi or Heikothi. Um, however, she does kind of go, Now, we can't have it both ways. Like, we can't have an Eosid or a somebody who said that what we had to do at Skythrone was necessary because they were worshipping Elbeti gods, but then on the same hand, be like, I'm going to help this construct that was built by and given a soul by an Elbeti god. Like, that's sort of her big problem is like, why is helping this robot okay, but helping the people of Skythrone in the temple and taking the time to sit with them and try to save their lives was deemed unacceptable. And Eosid's mind has probably changed on that because he isn't very gung ho Mathis anymore like he was at the time. But for Rasani, that's her thing. Is like, why is this robot okay when these people, these living people, were not?
Right.
Clearly, they made the robot too lovable.
yeah,
Everybody loves a robot.
Yeah.
Like that.
Big
As a
fan of
player,
robots.
I understand it's because robots are cute. That's
Robot's
why.
greater than Atov. Got it.
Like that's why they did it. And like the Atav are complicated people, but it wasn't priests who decided to enslave people. It was their king that we had killed. And yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but who's your bigger enemy? An Elbeti god or a Spine's Reach? We've already decided who the bigger enemy was because we have the Grey Accords. And because this construct is made by an Elbeti god, that is sort of like, it's and yeah, I'm not arguing that the robot is living and he has a soul, but the line that Aetolia as a whole has drawn, like the community, the continent of Sapiens has drawn, is that if it is related to or sympathizes with an Elbeti god, it has to be destroyed. So under that logic, then yeah. But for some reason, Durin was fine with the robot one that was aligning with an Elbeti god, but not okay with people that were, siding with an Elbeti god. So that's kind of the confusion for Rasani, where she's like, why is this okay to you guys, but this wasn't?
So I can weigh in a little bit on how Dwayne viewed Copperhead, which is
Sure.
that Copperhead, uh, from Aku's perspective specifically here, Copperhead had only been helpful and had only attacked people when Copperhead was attacked first. He wasn't there for Skythrone. Can't really say anything about that. And Dwayne as a whole kind of looked at Copperhead as kind of a tragedy because all of the Coggers are part of a cult of real living people whose souls were put into automata. And that's, about as unnatural as undeath to some eyes.
Yeah.
So
But
the idea was that if Dwayne went after Copperhead, then it would have been from a place of mercy killing.
right, but then doesn't that honestly that just confuses that would just confuse Rasani more.
Well,
Is that
right.
you're acknowledging that this? Oh, okay.
I was about
There
to
we go.
continue with the more like tinfoily aspect I have. Very
Sure.
recently, we had a member of Heron's Order tell Heron straight up, I'm not cool with constantly going after the Albedi.
Oh yeah, Aisling.
Yeah, and I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not going to help trap Evolamon. Aku kind of followed suit with Copperhead, where he basically said, I don't care that Copperhead is Albedi. If someone did to me and to my dead comrade what Spine's Reach did to Copperhead, I would be angry too. which ultimately, the tinfoily aspect comes into play here, where I think we're going to see a lot more players and their characters develop into this kind of space of we need actual answers on what's going on with this albedo stuff,
Yep.
or we're not gonna just kill random people for you. The Heikathi and Devolamon are different to Aku because they are actively trying to kill people. If he
Well,
walks into a room with a daemon, the daemon tries to kill him.
I mean, what's going on with the albedo stuff, though, is basically like they were there before our gods were, and our gods were basically, I can't say the word. Raisani, what's the word?
Usurpers.
Yes, that word. Thank you. And yeah, so that's what's basically going on with that. And I know, like, being Dars, like, Isia kind of knows this, but at the same time, like, because we have the book about Maudie and what happened with Maudie, and it's like written in the book of, like, literally called Regrets of the Underking, and what he did with Maudie was like one of those like big things. And so, like, we kind of know this, but at the same time, Varian's like the creator of all of us, and he sat there and told us these guys are bad, kill them. So, and they're like,
Yeah, and sorry, I just think what we're seeing is more characters develop to the point where, like, we keep coming across Albady things that aren't a threat until we do something to them. And so it's like something is clearly not lining up with what a lot
Right.
of what a lot of us have been told about the Albady and what the reality actually is there.
I think I'll be interested to see if it continues, because there have been some people that are very pro Copperhead, which I get. It's a robot. Like, I really honestly think that if this were anything other than a construct, then Durin would not have jumped in, because there's something about him that makes you want him to win. Like, there's just something about Copperhead that you're like, I really want him to win. Like, I'd be fine if he beat the shit out of everybody on map. But I'd be interested to see if it continues, because we have also already in the past of this game had Elbedi things that showed up and did not hurt anybody.
Right.
So, like,
look at Everready.
yeah, Everready was totally destroyed, despite the fact that she had only ever helped us. She's literally the only reason Ethne is a thing here. She did that, and she was destroyed.
Was to fight alongside the Sapiens gods with the
Like,
whole jocks.
yeah, she had only ever been helpful, and then you have the Mun, who just wanted to be left the fuck alone. But we had plenty of people who are, in fact, involved in the Copperhead thing, saying pro Copperhead, that were also pro go in there and beat the shit out of every Mun because they're not converting fast enough. So we have this. I would be interested to see if this attitude continues, or if this attitude only existed because people wanted to get one up on Spines.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I said it's kind of tinfoily, because it
Yeah.
is a few things happening like in direct succession as part of the same event that makes me kind of wonder if more and more characters are going to start feeling this way as like a consistent thing.
Yeah.
But then if they feel that way, are they going to feel secure in expressing that they feel that way because that's going like against the status quo, and they piss Varian off? Varian may decide that they're not coming back next time they die. And that it's a thing, like, where does their like survival instinct kick in?
That's definitely true. I think it depends on the type of character you play too, because I play Aku as very much like every time he has died and gone to the mirror, that has been an actual death for him, but he is sent back. Um, so I think he's the sort of person where at this point he's like, when I do go, it's not going to be that bad. I've been set on fire, I've been vivisected, I've been chopped in half, like it's not going to be that bad to finally return to the cycle. So I think if he ended up having to say something at threat of being obliterated by a god, he would probably still say it. I mean, he tried to chop up Amothus a few weeks ago. So I think it really does just depend on the type of character you're playing.
Yep. I think that on the topic of like when we see Albady things and gods, they're not like being, aggressive towards us or whatever, like you said. Like you said, you weren't at Skythrone, but I vividly remember, when we were at Skythrone and it culminated with Hava the speaker coming down. I believe
Yes.
Hava the speaker literally just came there to save what they perceived as their children. And then, if they're so all powerful and stuff, wouldn't they have like just killed everyone there? No, they just came there to save their child and leave. But then, of course, I think Bamathus, took the opportunity to try to attack them or something like
And
that.
got his ass
Yeah,
handed to him.
even though
got his ass beat.
Even though Hava is like, supposed to be one of the weaker Albady gods because it's like one of the gods of the Accord or whatever.
Yeah.
But my point is like if they're so powerful and they're like natural disasters, then Hava could have just destroyed the entire Sky Throne, but did not do that and then left. So
But yeah, it's Mawadi did much the same. Like, we got this huge thing where I was convinced we were gonna die, but all he did was he reached through the ground and tore away the abyss. So now the reason that you don't see Dar just pop up places is because instead of just getting to walk around and do whatever he wants, he now has to literally judge each and every soul and decide if they are worth preserving and saving, or if he has to destroy them. Because now he can't just throw bad and naughty souls into the abyss for punishment.
yeah.
And it's funny, actually. The first time that we had any interaction with the daemons of Yavalimon, they just showed up here, said, "Hey, is Yavalimon here?" And Durin said, "Well, no." And they were like, "Okay, see ya." Like, the reason we're being attacked now is because Yavalimon is the Fury and is pissed. So, I think we have already seen that some Albedi some people who are associated with Albedi gods do not want to harm us. But it doesn't particularly matter because Bamathus has a no tolerance policy. And until recently, every other god was just listening to everything he said. We're starting to see a spirit side gods be like, well, no, we're not going to do that. So I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, it's just, like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, everything aside, it's just really weird how like you make a character on Anatolia, and you're told like, and I've heard people say this. This isn't just me. This is newer people saying this too. And you're told about shadow versus spirit being the conflict. But then in reality, it's like just so easily discarded, and you're like told that this NPC threat is the big villain. Even though 90% of the time you go about your life it being spirit versus shadow, but then how is that even real if it's just all dropped at the threat of something that's not even really aggressive towards us?
Well, that's the you go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say the thing that's particularly interesting about spirit versus shadow to me is I can't remember the exact wording, but if you go talk to some of the religious Albedi figures in Delve, they have a very different opinion on undeath. They don't. I believe they don't view it as necessarily unnatural, so much as just a different state of being. And if you look at the Albedi pantheon, part of the Helm, which is like their big three gods, is what seems to be very nature god. So it seems like an interesting takeaway there would be if you look at I think it's Ilivos the Rampant. They're the heartbeat of the world, the ticking of life, and they're part of the Helm, so they're part of the really important gods. But they don't seem to think undeath is that bad. And that is specifically interesting to me, because if we end up adopting that more Albedi view, where undeath is just a different state and not unnatural, what then happens with the spirit versus shadow conflict?
And in terms of like, um, banding together with enemy cities to fight a cosmic horror, I think that's perhaps the most realistic thing about any of this, really. Is that when you see it all the time in like animals, even when faced with a bigger threat, oftentimes they'll ignore the threat from each other and deal with the bigger threat. So whether or not they are the bigger threat to Enorian or to the light or whichever, we have been informed by our gods that they are. So when you're a pious character, you're going to believe your god and you're going to decide, okay, well, I'm doing this and I have to ignore the fact that I don't get along with these people or I don't like these people or whatever and do what I'm asked to do. And that sort of expands even more when you're involved in military RP or you're anything like that. Um, so like I do understand. I hadn't even considered it, but I do understand how it can be confusing to newer players. This sudden thing, because when we had the Mawadi event, there was no accords in place, so we would still be at each other's throats constantly, and we probably just lucked out that Mawadi had no interest in hurting us. Um, Whereas specifically with the Jocks event, it was made so clear to us by the gods that like all of them needed to be working together, that the mortals kind of followed suit. When they saw their gods working together, they started working together. So
I do think also Audra of the Abyssal is another good example of a mix of like the Albedi gods aren't necessarily trying to hurt us, but they can still be a threat regardless. If you look at that there, Audrov is strong enough by himself to defeat pretty much the entire Sapiens pantheon at the time, except for Severn, who ran away, which seems like it was the right call considering that he beat everyone else. And then he just started repairing the planes. But repairing the planes is, according to the help file anyway, what caused shapeshifter madness. So maybe it will eventually be revealed to us that like we have to stop the Albedi from setting things back to the way they were because
Right.
the way they were is incompatible with sapient life to some degree.
Basically, sapience and Varian and all of it is the unnatural part of the world, but we don't really know that in character.
Because that's our part of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like I'm not saying that in character. I just mean that it's
Yeah.
out of character. It's pretty obvious that Varian is not telling the whole truth. Varian's obviously some kind of megalomaniacal thing.
Oh yeah,
And,
just
like,
through interactions that we've seen of Varian recently, we know he's a bitch.
right.
We know he's a total asshole.
If you look back at it, if you look back at the original stuff, like when the game opened, Varian, the whole Aetolia was split off like in character at the time from Achaea. And,
Yeah.
and so like if you take that into consideration, it's obvious that like Varian has a history of like trying to put things into place in the world that aren't supposed to be there, So, obviously I think it's a lot of like Albedos was the original and their pantheon was the gods of this plane or this world, and then we're just Sapiens has been unnaturally put here from the beginning. So I think that's kind of how it works, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. But in character, we don't know that, obviously, and we have to just deal with things the way they are. But
yeah,
and I think like and pardon my French, that is really going to fuck with a lot of Dwayne characters.
Yeah,
the concept that everything that you have viewed as natural and like the cycle this entire time is actually just an unnatural implant.
But
that Varian decided to pop in one day.
But I also don't think that necessarily the gods that Varian created know that, and they're just trying to do what their father tells them to do, most of them. So,
from what we know, or from what I know as a character, just from having talked to different gods about this sort of stuff after Skythrone. Skythrone was sort of a crux of faith shaking,
Right.
For quite a few characters. And I know, or Rasani knows, that Damariel knows. Damariel knows the truth, but is unable to tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ethne, interestingly, doesn't know because every iteration of Fire doesn't retain all the memories of the iteration before it. So part of the RP with Ethne that we've had recently is she's trying to remember. She wants to find all these old obscure books that we'll go looking around for because she wants to read and she wants to know. So yeah, so it's like some of the gods don't know. Dar didn't know until he was reminded, until like the memories came back to him when Mawadi showed up.
Right.
We had this whole event where these paintings were popping up in his temple, and we had to go into them and try and understand what was going on. And there was one that we can't get to anymore because he shut down the maze, but it was this. I might still have the description in that book. The Regrets of the Underking book might have it because you could look at it at the time. I did like a painting analysis. But we had all these paintings and stuff that we were trying to fuss out the meaning of. So like we know for a fact that some of our gods just don't remember. But we know at least Damariel does. I would venture a guess that Severn does as well.
Right. Since they're twins and it makes sense and all that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Varian's an asshole. And I like, it's, what's funny is you'll get people who will whisper to each other and be like, I think Varian's kind of an asshole. And but you always expect that somebody's gonna be like, oh, Varian is, whatever. But like a lot of people are like, yeah, he is kind of an asshole, isn't he? So like it's kind of the best kept secret of Sapiens that like, yeah, Varian's kind of a dick, but what are we gonna do about it?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it too, it's kind of, coming back to from death all the time with the mirror is also unnatural. So
well, yeah, of course.
So to me, it just all kind of fits as like Varian is a creator of an unnatural situation in a world, all the time.
And I mean, the bottom line is that basically the people who come back from the mirror, the adventurers, are essentially demigods.
Right.
And like if we traipsed through Albedos, we would be odd and strange because, like, you don't see many people like us in Albedos who, but you can actually. I will say this: it's not as unnatural as you might think, because if you die in Albedos, Mawadi takes you in his big hand, judges you unready for the abyss or for oblivion, and tosses your soul back.
Right.
So, like, apparently Mawadi will do it too if he doesn't think that you're ready to die. So that part isn't so unnatural, but Mawadi doesn't make it about, oh, I'm such a just and good father and you should weep before me. Mawadi's just like, bitch, get back in the oven. You're not done. So,
nice.
That is what it's like, though. Like, yeah. And yeah.
I think dying in Albedos is so cool because Mawadi interests me a lot. I think he's neat. That Marge Simpson picture, I just think he's neat.
I get grumpy when I die in Albedos because it's like you don't have the chance to approach or wait for somebody to like revive you. It's like instant. Like there's no choice there. So
well, yeah,
it's lost because it's gonna happen. If I die there, it's happening.
Yeah, Mawadi's just like, get out. I think Mawadi's really cool and interesting. It's probably even still the event I look at the fondest. It was my first big event ever. And it was such a huge deal because it was also, I was only like a knight aspirant at the time, so it was the first big crisis that Rasani had ever dealt with. So it was really cool. And I don't remember who handled, I don't know, rather, I should say, who handled it. I mean, Dar was great at the time. Like, whoever was playing Dar did a really fantastic job being this repentant kind of sad boy. And whoever played, we ran into the spirit that got into a body to talk to us. And whoever handled that in particular, it was disgusting and so cool. It was great.
I was actually kind of as an aside, I was gonna point out too that Yeleni and Azadim, I don't know if it's ever explicit where the essence we use to ascend comes from, but if Varian is an unnatural part of Aetolia setting as a whole, assuming that our essence is pulled from the gods that are made from pieces of his essence, we are all on that level too, just as unnatural.
Yeah,
In the
absolutely.
demigod sense.
It's funny because people always like with this back when you could do a custom 200 back in the good old days, before everybody was reaching 200. People had asked me, what would you do? And initially my answer had been, I would probably become a Dwambi, but now you can just do that. My secondary answer was, I think I'd just go back to being a regular troll. Like, I wouldn't be a Yelani, I would be this level, but Rasani would just be a troll again. Because it is, like, once it's happened, there's nothing you can do to get rid of it. And I don't know, it's interesting, to say the least, because they explain it when the gods talk to you, they explain it as giving you their essence. So Ethne always says that it's my flame is what she calls it because I follow her, so it would make sense. And it's that makes you wonder, is it your essence or is it just whatever energy that Varian has put into you that you have now put into me?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a good bit of viewers in here, so in case anybody's got us in another window and is just listening, I opened the weekly credit giveaway. This is also open to the guests on the show if you all want to enter too, as we've had several hosts win it in the past.
Yeah, I won a few weeks ago. I don't think I need to do it again.
Well, it's up to you. But yeah, anybody who wants to enter, just type exclamation ticket in chat. And also thanks to Hector again for making a new account and following again. Appreciate it. But yeah, do you guys want to talk about the dream stuff now, or?
That is you and Izia. I
Yeah.
was not here for this. It's a
Well,
shame we couldn't get Zavin on as well because he also got one, right?
I did not get a dream.
Yeah, no, you and I are just gonna
know-
sit here for story time.
Yeah, I think I know what's going on, but I'm going to be obnoxiously close-mouthed about it.
Right.
My
I've got
feeling
a few ideas.
is I have a feeling what's going on, and it feels manipulative to me. But
Hello, Yedev, in chat. We've been having a lot of fun so far, and we're gonna have some more fun. But let's so I'll lay it out a bit here. I woke up this morning. I was awake at about 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. Eastern, and I log on, and you get it, and I have this message, and I'll show it in the to the chat here.
I'm gonna forward you mine so you can show it too.
Okay. So I got that message. It's sent by Aetolia, but it's obviously like a dream. And like I have no idea. I asked Kalina because like she's a follower of Ome, and she was like one of the few people logged in if she knew anything about it or if she had gotten one. But throughout the day today, I've only like heard of Isia, Zavin, and myself so far that have gotten these dreams, and all three of them are different. But I think they're all about the warlord. Zavin, if you can you forward the message to me, and I'll show it as well. I don't know how you do message forwards. Isia would know, but I've never done one. But if anybody wants to read them in game, they're in there right now. But again, like they all seem to have something specifically to do personally with, you know, things that are important to that character or have happened to that character. So, kind of fascinating. I think from what I've heard so far, it seems like it's probably like obviously it's Ome related in some way because it's a dream. Whether or not Ome did it or one of Ome's followers did it in some way, I don't know. I've heard that, you know, already that people like their followers can do it to people like that, but I don't know that for sure. So, but anyway, it's kind of fascinating. I don't know why anyone would think my character needs urging to not follow the warlord, given everything that I've, you know, that the character's been through and been very anti-Bamathus, even to his own detriment. But, yeah, let's move on to the Isias here. I actually haven't read Isias yet. Let's see here. I'm going to be quiet for a minute while I read.
Oh god, I wish I could read that because my eyesight's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's tiny. Like you can't
It's
really read it
so
on
little, yeah.
stream.
Actually, I wonder if I can
If you
zoom
full
in.
screen the stream, I'm able to read it there. I don't know if that'll help.
Let me see if there's a way I
Maybe.
can zoom in OBS. I've never looked into that.
Let's see. Okay, I can kind of. Alright, I'll put my glasses on. Fine. Let's try to make fewer dad noises if I can help it.
I don't know if there's a way I can zoom in.
Like the thing, like about all of them, is that they're really tailored to that character's interests or things that they would be concerned about.
Right.
Like, because Isias is specifically about Takana, and she's spent so much of her life on that island from the time she was young until now.
Right. And I'm kind of scared to read what Saran sent me in the middle of all this, but I guess I'm going to type RM and see what they're doing here. Oh, Saran did actually get a dream as well. I thought that was just you being silly in character. Okay.
Oh shit, let's read his.
Ooh, new news. Cars, this just feels really mean.
I love it. I this is full permission to any god that wants to send me a fucked up dream. I'm open to it.
What about if it's actually a player doing it though?
I don't care. Traumatize Rasani. It's fine. It's whatever.
Okay.
It's all good. I want. Well, here's the thing. Full disclosure. I love this shit. I love anything that gives you like, it's more flavor to your character. Like it's more. It's because clearly whoever did this, whatever Solani did this, has seen your RP and knows you well enough to give you something that will get to you.
Issy is already like set on this coming from Ome and has plans to talk to Ome, but then at the same time, Issy is terrified of Ome.
Oh,
ever since the incident where she had asked her for a doll for the fundraiser and she gave her that horrible moth doll that like stared at her and reset to her inventory every time she tried to put it down.
Nice.
And had a heavy furniture flag on it. So she could only move one room at a time and couldn't bash for like a week.
I love
Ome.
I do love Ome. I'm so sorry. I know that had to suck because you love bashing, but like,
don't get me wrong.
I love Ome.
I just love how
He is
Ome is
terrified of her.
Rasani has such a soft. Every time Rasani speaks to Ome, it is one of three things. It is either get me something to eat and or drink, go kill something for me, or just something very nice. Like 1 out of 3 times, she actually says something very nice, and other times it's get me food, mortal. And it's like, all right, cool.
Ome is scary. Thank you, Brooks.
That's why I love her, though.
Well,
she's nuts.
I was just gonna say that, like, waking up to this, I know people are going to have different reactions to this, but my own personal reaction is that while I think it's kind of weird in my case to send me a dream that kind of like is like you shouldn't capitulate to evil when my character has never capitulated to Bamathus ever. I think that this stuff is really interesting, and honestly, I think whoever did this, be they another player or a Solani or whatever, I think this is a good like this is kind of what I was talking about before when I said that we can do things that are interesting in Aetolia that don't have to be about fighting or combat. And I think that this kind of drama, again, while some people aren't going to like it, I think it's actually very interesting, and I think that it's kind of like what I said, where I feel like we can do better. So I find it fascinating. I don't know what's going to become of it or who did it, but yeah, it's really cool. I kind of like it actually.
I definitely like it. I do think that these are with the intent to create something that can become combat, specifically the Bamathus ones. Because let's say you get, the next time we get somebody that comes to the Landward Gate and says, "Hey, you should let us preach about Bamathus here," you're gonna have Zavin and Erix who have seen these horrible flashes of a future of Anorian with Bamathus that are probably going to be a little bit more aggressively saying no. And that in turn can create combat and conflict that way. And I think that that's pretty interesting. I look forward to seeing how that plays out. And it does sort of create, I think it will create conversation around the Accords, frankly. I think you're going to have people, the more people who have dreams that are like anti-Bamathus, the more you're going to have people be like, maybe the Accords aren't such a good idea. So, it'll be interesting. I also, whoever wrote this dream to Zavin, you got me fucking lock and keyed, bitch, like 100%. Good on you for knowing me too well. Stubborn troll led by Rasani. Yeah, you got me. Nothing I could say. Damn, fucking roasted. But I think it'll be cool. I look forward to whatever this is. No matter what, I will say I hope it isn't something where it's like a player does it and then never, you know what I mean? I hope it's something that is continued and not just like a one-off thing. Because there's nothing more disappointing than something that looks so promising from like a long-term RP standpoint, and then it's just never touched again.
Yeah. But who knows what will become of this. And like earlier this week when things felt more slow, I was kind of concerned we wouldn't have much to talk about. And then, but in the back of my mind, I was like, the week is still young.
When did things feel slow this week? Because every single day I've woken up to messages that are like dumpster fire status. So when was it slow, Eric?
I don't know. You're a different person that has, city leader stuff, but like for the average person, I guess like myself, it's felt like from a world RP stage, it's felt slow compared to the ship stuff that was happening, that kind of peaked and then we had a bit of a lull. But I also figured something would happen with the Copperhead stuff, but it just didn't happen earlier in the week like stuff usually does. So
honestly, and part of it is because I think part of it is because we were looking at it from like a city security standpoint. Every time something went down, one of the heralds wanted to talk to me. So I knew that we would have some stuff to talk about, at the very least this week. Because over the week, it was very, like, and I gotta say, Izia, hats off to you for having the absolute nuts to just walk up to fucking a god, light a cigarette, and go, "What do you want?"
Mad.
Just literally, you lit a cigarette and said, "Well, I'm waiting." Like, so good, incredible.
Like everything else is going wrong today. Now you're here. What do you want?
Good grief.
It's kind of funny because for me it's been a little similar to how it's been for Eric's, where it's like all this stuff is going on, but Aku and therefore I don't hear about it until after it's been going on. So Aku's just been standing guard by the confluence for like in-game weeks, in-game months, just hanging out, and then like occasionally someone will tell him, "Hey, this thing happened," and I'm like, "What?
Like,
When?"
to give context, when Yvonne showed up at the gate, Isia was on her way to march into Spine's Reach and demand an audience with Copperhead to try to talk some sense into him to get him back to the confluence because she felt like that's where he needed to be rather than, fucking around in Spine's Reach trying to exact revenge on people who weren't even alive at the time when this other construct was defaced. So she was like, she's already like on this war path, and then Yvonne's at the gate.
God, it was so good. So funny.
I didn't even hear about that until just now.
He showed up, I guess, and we still have to figure out what that was because like a citizen squabbles with a god should not be a city matter. But I guess he got pissed at a citizen, and they weren't online, so he dropped a golem in that was hostile and then left.
I told that citizen had left a party or something, and I was never I never circled back to it because the person that told me that, I was like, hold on, I'm dealing with other stuff right now. I can't handle this yet. And I hadn't followed up on it yet. But
Yeah, we'll figure out what, and it may very well be that simple.
Yeah, because I do want to just do a quick note. I haven't gotten to interact with Yvonne, but everything I've seen, every god that's being played recently has been so engaging. It's been super great.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I was gonna, as an aside here, real quick, since we have a new viewer, Amarita has joined us. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do a weekly credit giveaway, and if you want to enter for free, type !ticket in the chat. And that's for anybody that's joined us in the last little bit too that didn't know it was open currently. There, like Zavin.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Rosani.
Oh no, I have a little bit of a cold, so you got the tail end of me blowing my nose.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say we've talked about the Copperhead stuff. I'm not sure what to do for the pronounce this segment, so we might table that for this week. But so what do you guys think about what do you think we're gonna see going into 2022? When we have a full year potentially of Ictinus coming up? What do you guys think 2022 is gonna be like in the future?
I am biased. I hope more Dracothi conflict.
Right.
That is what I want. I know that does kind of contribute to the confusion of Spirit versus Shadow versus, everyone versus Albeti, but I think Dracothi are the simplest and still compelling antagonists for everyone because, as I've mentioned a few times, they showed up on a war crimes airship and did war crimes.
Yeah.
People.
And yeah, it
a lot
is.
of people hate them as a result. So
they do war crimes, and it's also like, yes, we can go to war with other cities and stuff like that, but you don't oftentimes get the RP involved around being a city at war that you do when you're fighting Dracothi. And you know that there's going to be downtime, and you kind of know when conflicts will arise, because oftentimes when the most of Shadow can be around, most of Spirit is asleep. And when the most of Spirit can be around, Shadow is asleep.
Right, yeah.
So, honestly, the only interaction we really get when we do those sorts of things is to PK each other. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people that would be fine with that, and even me who's started to like PK and get into it, I still want there to be some roleplay around it. So, the ship was great because you're in the middle of this big fight, and there's still roleplay to be had, and there's a lot of tension. There isn't really tension in group PK. It goes so fucking quick that there isn't time for it.
And I get lagged out of group PK a lot. And the ship was great. I was actually at one point doing the bridge stuff from my phone.
Yeah.
And I was totally able to keep up, and it was amazing. because it's like Raisani said, like there's role play with it rather than just we're gonna go wail on each other using our skill sets.
And I will point out to Roan here, like, I absolutely think that, yes, I hope to see more events that are guild focused. I would like to see in 2020 each guild have an event that is specifically tailored to further build up their RP.
Yeah.
Because guilds have been pretty neglected for a long time.
Yeah,
I would note.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay.
I would note. I think as mirrors come in, that's going to do a lot for the guilds that don't have mirrors, because mirror classes, when they come in, barring a Nyromancer, because Indorani and a Nyromancer don't have a guild. Mirror classes, as they come in, do a lot to revitalize the relevant guild, and in a lot of cases, the relevant city. Indorani have mirrors. Neuromancers are the mirrors of Indorani, but what I'm saying is, because Indorani don't have a guild, Neuromancers don't have a guild either, so they're a little bit more disconnected from bringing focus back to a guild. So speaking from just what I've seen before Sentinels had Wardens and after Sentinels had Wardens, there was a lot of added lore. There was some extra clarity of purpose, and just some revitalization of what the guild is about. So I suspect, as we get more mirror classes coming in, and especially a mirror class for Anorian has to be coming next, we'll see that greatly affect the guild that it goes into, and I think also affect the city of Anorian. Especially if it's Duanvi related.
Yeah.
That's all very possible. Because like I could see them coming up with like a spirit, something akin to like spirit, consanguine or whatever.
Yeah, spirit premium. Yeah.
I think that that's all well and good, but I think that a lot of guilds have more than enough to do something that isn't related to a new class. I don't think that an event should have to have a way for that guild to have to spend money on credits for it to get something that builds up their guild RP. And unfortunately, that's really all mirror classes are for. Mirror classes are a way to get us to spend more money. Like, that's what it boils down to. And like, I think that a guild shouldn't have to wait for their mirror class to be done to get that kind of attention that we haven't gotten in the past, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years. So like, I do think that mirror classes are probably helpful in that way, clearly, because the Sentinel were booming after Wardens came out. And Warden seems like a super cool class, and I'm still envious of your War Gauntlets. But I definitely think that they shouldn't wait for mirror classes to give the guilds the attention that they need.
Well,
yeah, that's totally fair.
What I was going to say is that Rowan said in chat, I actually kind of like, maybe it's just me, but I want to see more guild or city identity stuff. Instead of just event after event where we're blurring the lines for the greater good. And might just be me and my current orgs, but I feel like the idea of a larger org purpose is missing right now, or has been pushed so far to the side that it's not relevant. And then Ice had said in chat that they second Rowan's statement and had talked about it on the official Discord. I kind of agree with both of them. I think that's kind of what I meant by the Al-Beatty stuff earlier. It's like, our guilds have these identities and our cities have these things that they believe in and these identities, but like, we're constantly being told lately, oh, that doesn't matter. Gotta push it to the side and just be anti-Al-Beatty all the time. And it's just like, where does that leave us after the Al-Beatty stuff cools off? It's like, you'd expect us to just drop all that and go back to the way. I don't know. I don't like that. And I think that
we could do with slowing down a little between Al-Beatty stuff, to be honest.
I think that the reason they went so hard is because we hadn't had anything for so long. I suspect it'll even out.
Well, I just hope it gets resolved. That's the thing. I don't mind it as long as it like leads finally to an ending. It's like, it's kind of like the Walking Dead show. It never frickin' ends. It's like, we need an ending or something, or a resolution of some kind that feels sort of like an ending. Like, just always
Well,
having it be this boogeyman that you have to put aside all of your personal organization's beliefs in at the drop of a hat is just kind of gross to me. Like, it's, I don't know. I don't find
I
that very
mean,
interesting.
it. I think if you're hoping that the end of the Valamon event will be the end of the Elbedi, you're going to be disappointed.
No, I don't
And
mean that.
I think if you're hoping that the Elbedi event will be wrapped up anytime soon, you're going to be disappointed because they have chosen them for the foreseeable future as our big bad guy. So it doesn't mean we'll be fighting them all the time, but it does mean that at some point we will have to fight them. And I will have to, as somebody reminded us in the chat, the admin did not put the Grey Accords on us. Players came up with that. So at any point in time, players can decide that they don't like it anymore. You'll have to get your city support and that sort of thing. But you can decide that you don't want to be part of the Grey Accords anymore. And then you don't have to. But then, if you get frustrated at events, this is why, out of character, I feel the Grey Accords happen. Because we did, at some point in Atolia's history, have a record of some players because sort of bogarting events and being like, well, we're stronger than you, so we can kill you and take it, and you won't get to see it at all. So that, I think, is the out-of-character reason for the Grey Accords.
I will say, from a city leader standpoint, the information exchange has been extremely helpful for pieces that we didn't get to interact with. We get filled in on it. That way we have a whole big picture to look at it from, rather than just the little pieces that we were personally there for.
So I think, like I was saying, like at any point in time, if the players are tired of the Grey Accords, that's not something that the admin forced upon us. We can, if you can get the votes, pull out of the Grey Accords and go back to killing each other over admin attention during these major events. So I think that is totally doable and acceptable. And if you can convince people of your point, then that's great. But I suspect that you will have a hard time convincing people, not because they aren't dedicated to the RP of their chosen, organizations. I've been a Templar since I started playing, and I only took a brief break to the Centauri for I think I was gone a month. So I am clearly very dedicated to that RP. But I think the reason that people are okay with it is because it is much more interesting to most people to have those complex moments with a character where it's not as simple as, well, I believe this, so I'm going to do that. Where you have to go, well, is my feelings on this worth the amount of people I could hurt to do it? It's the interconflict that those kinds of compromises make that I think can become interesting role play. And I can understand where it would be confusing to new characters, but I do think I think it was remarkable that the player base came up with something like the Grey Accords on its own. And I think that it does a disservice to it to call it uninteresting roleplay, because I was there when the Grey Accords were made, and that was some of the most intense and interesting roleplay I'd ever seen, because it was literally real diplomatic debates and concessions and all that stuff. So that's sort of my feeling on the matter.
I don't know.
We moved past this a little bit, but leaning back into my bias,
Sure.
I think I would be fine with the Betty stuff continuing for a while, specifically because it does lend itself to creating more organic conflict even between allies. Because for every time we have to put aside our mutual hatred, that does, I think, cause some strain with certain characters.
Yes.
And again, biased, I love fighting the Dracothi. I don't get to do it very much at all. but for my character at least, killing and fighting Dracothi is a way to get back at the people that wiped out his people and destroyed their home, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there is a lot of room still for exploring that, because the Sola aren't alone in being super affected by the Dracothi.
Certainly.
And I think forcing people to explore that and the gray areas, like I think Actinus is saying, forcing people to explore the gray areas through events like that is good, because at some point you have to be like, well, how much is too far for my character?
Absolutely.
Find that
Well,
limit.
what I was gonna say though, and then Isia, if you want to respond or say something, you can. Is I really believe that it's fine. Yes, it is fine to have gray areas, but like, and I kind of enjoyed the thing with the confluence and the ship and stuff. That made sense to me. But I feel like sometimes the gray accords are getting like used when they don't need to be. Like you're just introducing gray areas just to do it, and even when it doesn't make sense. Like the thing with the Forgotten months ago made no sense to me. Like, why are we calling the Gray Accords for some assassins that are attacking people? Like, it's just weird.
The gray
Like,
the gray accords were not enacted for that.
that's what I was
People,
told in character that they were at the
I,
time
I'm
during the
not,
event.
I'm not sure who would, because I think honestly that wasn't even a Gray Accords thing. That just wound up. People started trading information because it was made clear that the assassins were going after
We were
everybody.
sharing information, but sharing information does not mean the accords are enacted. That is something that you actually have to take a vote to do, and the leaders of all 4 nations have to agree on that. But no, they were not officially enacted for that. There was just a lot of information sharing going on because things were happening in all 4 cities and they were coming from the same source.
I don't know. I just think it's weird. Like, it seems like anytime, like, my point is, like, just because an event is global, do we have to use like that system every single time during every single global event, regardless of what it is? Like, I don't know. I think that also takes away a lot of nuance. Is my point.
Well, I think that again goes into the gray area, because that's what you're maybe discovering. Like maybe Eric's isn't going to want to coordinate with Shadow when it comes to things like, you know, the assassins.
Yeah, killing
When the
little mortal
daemons,
assassins that are like NPCs that you bash.
when
Like,
when the daemon showed up, I deliberately played it the first time as when the silver or the Argent Bemothus's order was organizing people. I don't remember if it's Argent or Silver. Sorry. I
Argent.
deliberately played it so that Aku did not group up with them and went off on his own and started killing demons by himself, because I've kind of touched on it a little bit. There's conflict there. He doesn't want to work with them, and if it's just fighting demons, he didn't think he had to, and he has been kind of proven correct so far in that regard. So I think that's a less significant gray area, but it's still touching into that inherent conflict of, yes, these things are a threat to all of us, but they, sorry about the dog.
That's
But
fine.
they don't.
I love your dog. I don't know what they look like, but I love them.
He's a tiny little terrier mix.
Oh, I love him.
Not a dog. That's a rat that barks.
But yeah, it's still kind of touching into that, where it's like, yes, we have a mutual enemy, but that doesn't mean that the mutual hatred between us goes away to the point that my character is always willing to work directly alongside Shadow.
I would like to. Ias had put out I think the Albedi conflict has been presented a certain way in storytelling that creates a sense of players not being allowed to have opinions contrary to let's all team up. Here's the thing. Nobody at any point in time, like there are going to be people who this is the free speech. It does not mean free of consequences. So if you do something because you don't think that you want to team up, that's fine. But that does not mean you are free of the consequences of your actions. Nobody's saying that you have to agree that we're all going to team up and work together. But if that's the law of the land, like Izia, for example, during the Hekathi event, enacted martial law. So let's say that Rasani doesn't agree and does something that Izia tells her not to do. I'm allowed to do that, but I am not free of those consequences. And that, as a role player, is something that you should always be prepared for. So, like, Issa did something that, you know, he may now have to face consequences with friends or loved ones or whatever, but that's his decision as a character and a role player to do that. Nobody is telling anybody that their role play is invalid because they disagree with the Grey Accords. What they are telling them when they role play and they say, hey, you know, this is what it is you are absolutely allowed to do any role play action that you want, but you have to understand that your role play has consequences just like real life actions do.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's really it. Is nobody is saying that you can't be contrarian to that. But just because you can be doesn't mean there won't be consequences to that action. And, you know, that's the same as anything. Every action has consequences.
I do think, in a more direct sense, Dwiren did kind of try to go against the grain here, and I don't blame anyone for what happened. Obviously, this was Shadow's equivalent to the Dawnbreaker event, but Dwiren tried to like go against it because you know there are sympathies for Copperhead, and Dwiren got godmoded by an NPC, kind of, you know, just kind of run over. So there is the sense out of character sometimes of this is how these events are supposed to go, and you can maybe do a little bit to influence it, but at least in regards to that, it felt like the choice of going against the individual the individual event, the individual storyline there wasn't able to proceed past a certain point. And I'm not saying that's bad at all, and I'm not saying that that is exactly what happened. Because I do think there were a lot of opportunities to interact with Copperhead. I do think there were a lot of opportunities to influence how the event went. I'm just saying from the perspective of someone who was watching and not able to be very engaged in it, watching the people get killed by the NPC kind of just felt like, okay, so we weren't supposed to do that, but we're not left really knowing exactly what to do. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the event. I think it was run great. It just did lead into a little bit of confusion on my personal end of what were we supposed to do then if we opposed what was going on.
Right. That's kind of the way I look at it, because anytime I oppose what's going on, I get shot down by like 18 people in the room, so I just stopped opposing it generally.
Which again relates to consequences of actions. So, like, I can understand that can be frustrating. Believe me, I have been in those shoes where you are being told time and time again you can't do that. So, like, I understand that it is super, super, you know, frustrating, can be frustrating as a player, as a character, but you then at that point have to decide you have to decide what's more important to you. Like, when I was in your situation, I decided it was more important to me to stay in my city or whatever than it was for me to do the thing that I wanted to do. And that can always be a hard RP decision. But that's really but those are also the moments that have the potential to make incredible moments for your character. Because, you know, you sort of, you know, conflict is what makes your character. It's the same, conflict is the same thing that makes any of us grow. anytime we are faced with like a hardship or something that is conflict that we then grow from. So it's the same for your character.
Yeah.
So yes, you may have people who are shutting you down or something, but that doesn't mean that you can't do the thing that you're still saying. It's just warning you, hey, there are consequences to this action you're talking about. That's really all that boils down to.
What it boils down to is that you try to follow your moral values and character like that, and then that has political consequences, and then political consequences can have mechanical consequences, and on and on and on. It's just like, at what point do you even bother anymore? Like, so. But anyway, that's just the way I look at it, and it's not like the end of the world. It just is what it is. But
I just as a role player who's been in your position before, I would honestly just say that the only way you get defeated in this situation is if you allow yourself to. So if you really feel like your character would do something, you say fuck it and you do it. That's what Issa did. Whether or not my character agrees with him, as a like, she frankly, like, we'll call a spade, she thinks he's an idiot right now. But she can respect that he did what he thought was right.
Right.
Regardless of the consequences that he may now face. She can respect that he made a decision that he felt was correct. So, at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to go, fuck it, I'm gonna do what I think is right regardless. If you really want to live by, your character's morality. If you really want your character to live that way, then you need to make the decision to do it regardless of the political consequences or the mechanical consequences or any of that.
And then you end up a rogue in Estherport, and then you just quit because there's nothing to do.
Or you
So, like, I don't know.
test every week, you can do that.
I think unless you were saying that you were going to go blow up Spines Reach by yourself in the middle of an Al-Beatty fight,
No.
you're probably not going to get kicked out of a city. You have to do a lot of shit to get kicked out of a city.
I don't know.
Clarify really quick, because I don't know if I was 100% clear. I think it was totally fine that the NPC killed the raiders, because obviously that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just meant it as like an example of sometimes it's not clear how we're supposed to interact with the event.
Yeah, I was going to try to get around to that. Two things. Firstly, Ector did redeem story time, and secondly, we can kind of move on to the last topic that I had listed, because I think that would be a fascinating thing to talk about that we've not really talked about in depth. But before we do that, go ahead, Ector. Story time is where you ask someone that's on the show to tell a story of their choice, and it doesn't have to be about Aetolia. It can be about anything of their choice. So who do you want to tell a story? I'm waiting. Story time with Rosani. Okay, Rosani, you can tell any kind of story you want. It can be Aetolia or non-Aetolia. Okay, an ad just started.
Oh, and my ad's for Arcane. If you haven't watched Arcane, fucking watch Arcane. It's so good.
I have not yet. I have
It's
been
so
watching
good.
Wheel of Time, though, which has been awesome as well.
Arcane, I think, is probably the best animated show I've seen in years. It is so good. The music is spot on. Sorry, I was just talking about Arcane because we just got an ad. My ad was for Arcane. Ector, what story do you want me to tell?
Well, the redemption is for you to choose, Rosani.
Oh, for me to choose.
Yes.
I have.
And it can be about anything, though. It doesn't have to be about
anything.
Yeah.
Story of your choice. Yeah, I guess it is a story of my choice. Okay, I'll tell one of my favorite stories from Aetolia, just because this is an Aetolia podcast.
Okay.
And nobody wants to hear about my outside exploits. So when I was new, I really zipped through knighthood because I was just so into it. I love D&D and that sort of stuff, so I really got into the role play aspect of it. I don't really care much for bashing. I don't bash anymore. All of my extra levels, aside from 100, are from PK. Bashing can go right to hell. So, I was doing my knighthood requirements, and one of the things that you used to be able to do, they changed it all up now. One of the things you could do as a knight aspirant was do an interview and a book on death. So I put out this market thing. I was trying for ages to find a vampire that would talk to me. And I finally found one. She was like, okay, so here are my rules for it. You have to meet me in Bloodlock, and you have to buy me a drink. So Rasani was like, oh, this will be easy. All right, yay. So we go, I buy her a drink, I put it right there, and we start talking about on death. She has not touched this drink, and Rasani's like, okay, so you just made me waste money, whatever. So I'm doing this report, and I think it's still in the Pentarch's office. But at the end of my interview with this vampire lady, she took the drink I had purchased for her and poured it directly onto my lap, like ruined Rasani's uniform entirely. Uh, and she was like, and that's for actually buying me a drink because I'm a vampire idiot, and walked off. And literally, I'd say maybe, I don't know, a month or two real life time later, the same vampire reaches out and says, hey, I want to convert. So Ryan's like, all right, you dumped a drink on my fucking uniform, but all right. And long story short, she ended up being Rasani's first wife.
Nice.
So it was just that I encourage people to do shit like that because I remembered immediately after not interacting with this character at all for months that this character had dumped a drink on my uniform. Like that kind of stuff makes an impression. It's the same thing with like Elena and like the lye water. I'm gonna remember her forever because she gave me lye water. Like, do weird little stuff like that. You're being an asshole to people doesn't necessarily just have to be killing them or whatever. Be creative with your meanness to spirit-sided players. Because I think that ends up being like a really fun story to tell somebody later. Yeah, there's my story time.
Okay, that was a good one.
It also goes the other way around from spirit to shadow because I'm never
Absolutely.
gonna forget Aaron biting.
Yes. Yes, be creative with it. 100% be creative with it. Like I likewise served a drink to somebody, and I did this to after I was served the live water. I did it to her too, but I did it to somebody who's being an asshole to me. I have well, I don't serve it in my bar anymore now. It's an Anthony's bar, but the Towering Inferno is made with like Zicta pepper liquor.
Yeah,
and they didn't know, so they were being assholes in my bar. I give them a free drink, and suddenly they're like scrambling to try and get anything else. But you either have to pay for some water in my bar, or you're just gonna sit there and suffer.
Well, I was gonna say, Mr. Broke says, I pick fights I know I'm going to lose. Nice Fight Club call out there. Rowan said, I snuck up on someone and loosened the straps on his saddle so he fell off when he spotted me and tried to chase me. Yeah, good times. But I was just gonna say we could move on to this last discussion, and then if we want to go some more just about anything, we can. I was thinking about ideas for this week, and I was like, one thing I don't think we've really talked about in depth or thought about or whatever is alts, people's alts and stuff. Because I feel like everybody's probably got a different viewpoint on this, for themselves personally, or for how they view other people having alts and stuff. When I played Empyrean, I had a few alts. I tried it out personally, and it created some interesting moments. But like after that, like when it comes to Aetolia, I've never had alts. I just have the one character usually. And I don't know why that is, but I feel like for me personally, I think alts are fine for other people, but I just like to have the one character to focus on the one character. But I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I don't want to know. Like, that's the reason I stay off of like the Atolia General and all that other stuff. I don't want to know. I just want to see the character as the character they're on, and that's that.
I have tried to have alts, and I'm never able to do it. Because by the time I was like, maybe I'll try having an alt, I had so much time invested in Rasani that every time I was on Aetolia, I was like more interested in what could be going on in her, the kind of stuff that she's already involved with than I was in trying to establish another character. I don't particularly care if you have alts. I also don't ask people what their alts are. I prefer to just go based on... The only time I care is if it is a character that I have... Or a player, rather, I should say, that I have put on ignore.
Right.
That is really the only time I ever care. Because if I've put you on... I don't put people on ignore because they irritate me. I will only put you... Like, for example, the only person I have on ignore is somebody who called me the F slur. So I don't put people on ignore unless I'm like, you I don't want to deal with at all ever. That's the only time I care. But you know, other than that, if you are able to separate your in character from out of character, I think that that's totally chill, and like you could separate the characters uninvolved. That's great. I hope you have a lot of fun with it. I can't do it, so kudos to people who can. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I've tried playing alts a few times. I think there are probably some people in chat who know who those alts are. And
I assume it's a
eventually,
cat.
one of them was a dog.
Oh.
Oh well, there you go.
Yeah. I just can't stick with it in the long term, unfortunately, and it kind of sucks because I end up I always want to play a new concept. I'm like, oh man, like I want to play an orc of some sort,
Hell
and
yeah, dude.
then I play an orc, and I'm like, this is fucking sick. But you know, I want to play Aku, and then I just completely lose track of what was going on with the orc. And so I just kind of now when I have like the thing of I want to play an alt, I typically just let it I let that fall to the wayside because I know I'm not going to stick with it, and that kind of sucks for anyone who invests time
Right.
in my alt
Yeah,
character.
that is always hard.
Yeah.
And then I don't really care if other people alt, just as long as like because there's some people you can definitely tell when you're interacting with them their alts, and I don't care if
Yeah.
I'm interacting with their alt. It's a different character. I think as long as there is like proper separation between those characters, I'm just kind of like, cool, that's fine, whatever. Like, I don't really come across people metagaming in this game, but it is a lot harder or a lot easier to do it by accident when you have active alts, in my experience in other games.
Yeah, it used to be a little bit more prominent. Like you would see people log on to known alts because there are some people that are very open, like on the forums or whatever, about who their alt is.
Right.
And you would see people log on to known alts for an event that was happening in a city, and then go back onto their main, and somehow their main had information that they shouldn't have had. And you're like, all right, whatever. Like that's cheap. Which I think would be my only argument against alts, but I think that's the minority of people who have alts. I think most people who have alts are able to separate the information.
Exactly. That's not an alt issue so much as a person issue.
Agreed, yeah.
But yeah, like I just like I don't know. I was thinking about it like as a whole. Do we feel like alts are healthy for the game? Should they be allowed? I mean, obviously they're never going to stop allowing people to do alts, but I was just thinking about the different nuances of alts. Like, is what we're used to the way things should go? I mean, you know, I don't know.
I think they're fine as long as there's not a conflict of interest happening. Like, obviously, you shouldn't have alts on leadership in 2 different cities.
Agreed. I was just about to say.
Access to sensitive information in 2 different cities.
And I think you shouldn't pretend to be an actual newbie, because people are always going to help real new players more than alt new players. They're still going to help alt new players, but I personally, I just think it's if I was going to make an alt, I would not want people giving me a bunch of free stuff that they might give to an actual newbie, because I don't make gold very easily, but I know more or less what I'm doing going around. I don't need as much help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like Izzy hit the nail on the head. I think alts are totally fine as long as not both of them are involved in leadership. I think you should avoid having alts in the same guild, if you can. Because one, why not just play I think it's one thing if you're like, I don't want to retire this character, but I'm not going to play them for a long time, but I still like this guild. That's one thing. But I think it's another thing if you're actively playing both characters and you have them both in the same guild. That's a little bit weird to me.
Yeah, I did once because I really wanted to play Warden and I thought I was never going to play Aku again. And
Fair.
so um, when I came back to Aku, it was just kind of like a whole lot of not engaging with stuff that my other character knew for a while
Yeah.
until I felt like enough time had passed that I was kind of like, okay, I can get this from Aku's eyes without being kind of
Yeah.
stuck in the previous character's headset.
Totally.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, something that Yedave said in chat that's kind of true to some people anyway, is that some, kind of some people may not make alts as much because alts fell to the wayside ever since multi-classing became a thing. Because people used to make, at least back in the day, at least on Empyrean too, like some people would make alts to try out the different classes. I know that's what I did for one of mine. I made my first and only female character on Empyrean just to try the Malignus class at the time, which was really cool. Um, yeah, and since you don't have to do that as much anymore, it's not as big of a thing for some people.
Multiclassing was a thing when I joined, so I really, I had never played in an Atoli where you couldn't have multiple classes. So I would assume, yeah, that alting was much more common when you could literally only have your guild class.
Yeah.
Yeah, to bring up other games, it's kind of like how in World of Warcraft, if I ever want to try a different class, ever want to do something different, I have to make a whole new character and
Right.
level up from scratch. But in Final Fantasy, I just pick up the class on my
Yep.
existing character.
Love that
Yeah.
game, even though I'm not playing it. Love that game. Very good game with a lot of good designs.
And I personally prefer the multi-classing system to having to make a new character, but I can see the appeal for both because, like I mentioned, I do really like to play with different character concepts.
Yeah.
But I've just recognized that I'm not going to stick with them long enough.
And I will say that before multi-classing existed on any of the games, it also made it to where guilds have had more of a control over the class, obviously, because you could only be in really, well, I guess you could be rogue and stuff, but like, I feel like the class and the identity of the guild were much more tightly tied back then. Which can be good or bad. I mean, there's two sides to that.
I'm muting myself. I have a child having a meltdown.
It's okay.
Sure.
That is totally understandable.
Kids
I
be
will
doing
say,
that.
I think multi-classing also opens up neat tools for guilds, just in the sense of like you look at things like Sissin's special language,
Right.
and how
Signs.
yeah, signs, and I think it's something like people in the guild with the Sissin class, even if they're not in Sissin, can understand it anyway because that just makes logical sense. So I think that is kind of minor, but it's like a neat avenue for approaching that roleplay.
We've also particularly in the Templar, we have kind of different paths, I would say, that fit sort of a niche that could help players that come here with a class that they prefer to play, but still like the role play of the guild. Like we have sort of scouts and that kind of thing. So Sisson are really good for that because they can go sneaking around and get information and that kind of thing. And we've got we have the chaplain and a sort of a more healing / religious based sort of pathway for people who might like luminary or even zealot. So we have a lot of that stuff, and I think that that's really good for the game as a whole.
Yep. And yeah, I was just wanting to get people's opinion on alts because, like, there's something to be said for like some people that are like some of us in here that just want to focus on one character, and then you have other people that literally have like 30 different characters, and they love that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Famously, my now ex-girlfriend was one of those people that had so many characters, and she would always try to get me to make alts to play with her alts, and just would beg me, and I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, I just don't want to. Like, it's just not in me to have an alt. And it's just weird. It's like there's this divide, between those two mentalities, and I just find it fascinating.
Clearly, that's the real tether v tether conflict.
But yeah. So anyways, I'm probably gonna go ahead and draw the credit winner for the week. So if there's people in chat who have not entered yet, you have about a minute or so to enter before I draw it. Apparently Amy's telling me in character that she thinks a Sisson is chasing her. That's not good. I should ask her if she needs eye sigils, since she's in a shop where she can buy eye sigils.
That's unfortunate timing.
Very unfortunate timing.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if a Sisson was chasing her. She's feisty.
I think she has
a bounty,
some
perhaps,
aura or another.
Oh, she has the aura of defilement. That's what it was. I forgot about that. Yeah.
What'd she do?
I don't know. I didn't ask her yet. I saw it on her last night and didn't ask her.
I just know there's been fighting going on about it, like all day today, between her and various. I think it was happening yesterday too, between her and various shadow players.
Various shadow players.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say various orders. I was like, girl, focus on one at least.
I think it's just one. I don't know in or out of character, so it might be.
Just pick the one, because that's already going to be enough of a problem.
So, quick little aside story about Amy last night. I decided, because like I and Razani knows this because I've showed her. I kind of fixed up my shapeshifter offense in a different way, and it's like pretty effective right now. And so last night I decided to actually do a sect thing, and it was against her, and she beat me. And y'all are gonna laugh at me about this so hard, but she beat me because during the whole sect fight, I did not realize why my vocalizing howls weren't doing anything to her the whole entire sect fight. And then we were trying to figure it out afterwards, and it turns out I had my enemy list configured off from doing milestones.
Oh yeah, that'll do it. Sometimes I'll do that with the pestilence aura.
Yeah.
I'll be like, they should have been getting way more halves than that, and then I realized I didn't have my enemy list on. Happens. Pain in the ass. And it's always like you always feel bad. You're like, oh, that's really the reason. Like, seriously? Because you never know if you would have won or not. And that's like such a silly reason to attribute to, like, you not doing as well as you could have done.
But it was kind of validating in that, like, even though I lost the sect fight, she actually had to, like, move out of the room against me a few times, even though I didn't even have vocalizing going. So that was cool. And then I lost, but then once we figured it out in a training room, we decided to spar a few times in the training room, and I think she beat me once or twice, and I beat her maybe like 4 or 5 times. So, but she also wasn't moving out of the training room either, so, but...
Yeah, whenever I lose because of something stupid, I just, I think my mindset of sect is everyone in there is good enough to beat me, and on a good day I can beat a lot of people in there, but, if I lose because of a stupid reason, they probably would have beaten me anyway because I didn't notice to fix it.
Yeah. I will say, probably my favorite thing right now in Sect is a lot of people are really enjoying Earthcaller class. And I'm actually getting to enjoy, because oftentimes when we do, group fights or that sort of thing, it's usually AFs. And AFs are fine, but there is something viscerally enjoyable about doing limb damage, and I've really enjoyed doing that lately. So thank you for playing Earthcaller, everybody. I'm having a lot of fun just breaking your limbs.
Yeah, limbs is a lot of fun. For some reason, I like really identify and can understand Shapeshifter quite well. But I had a hard time when I had Monk of being like, wow, I can hit 3 limbs and I have these Kaido abilities, and like, what do I do? But like, since I switched to Shapeshifter, primarily as my limb class, it's like really easy for me to understand. But again, what I ended up doing that works for me now offensively with Shapeshifter is that I put the head, the torso, the arms, and the legs all on 4 different macros that I press. They're still Sunder scripts, but they're set to those keys, like F keys. So I don't have to make something in Sunder that decides on what limbs to go after, and is therefore predictable, because I can be unpredictable by picking which one to go to next. So
Yeah, a lot of it is, especially with Sunder, a lot of it is building off of what exists there, because pretty much everything that exists there is a group offense. It's not meant to win you 1v1.
No, like I made my own offense a while back for Shapeshifter in Sunder, and then I just kind of split it into 4 different macros that are kind of semi-manual now. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just touching on that because it does come up sometimes.
But yes, I don't think that like you just said, I don't think the 1v1 stuff in Sunder, the basic stuff, is very good, but the group stuff is fine.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know.
Because
I
the
didn't
goal
have
is just
to.
to get people into group stuff. I think
Right.
the template stuff is a little more robust because of who made it originally.
I have not had to edit. Like, I've had to edit a few things in each of the Templar Sunder routes for 1v1, but I haven't had to edit much. So it's not like they're bad 1v1.
Oh yeah, well, it's also like the Templar stuff is what I think Sunder was originally made for anyway. So it's,
Right, yeah.
it's pretty good. It's like it's had a lot of the really good, Templar fighters over the years work on it. So it's pretty much as good as it gets, but obviously nowadays you have to edit and put the new abilities in it, like water.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I would love to see eventually Sunder get the rest of the classes as complete as Templar, because I do think that it, like you said, it's a good way to get people involved in PK.
I think, personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else on this, I kind of would almost prefer if it was the opposite way. I think Sunder works very, very well for getting people into group PK and providing like a framework for people to build their own offenses.
Yeah. It's great for that.
And I think I would prefer if it stayed that way, just because personally I think that's the goal. We want to let more people participate in group stuff, and then if they would want to work on sect or 1v1, the framework is there for them to build things, but it's not immediately.
I mean, I think that's totally fair. I will say, as somebody who has been in the Templar a long time, we've had a good at least 3 or 4 blind players join us, and asking them to make their own 1v1 code is kind of unreasonable. So for me, it's more about, like, I can understand there's a lot of people who are very, very proud of their code, and I will never take that away from them. But I don't think more accessibility is ever a bad thing.
That's true. I think in those cases, personally, if I was going to write something for them, I would write it specifically for them and not put it out for general distribution. Just personally.
I mean, yeah, I have to agree with Ector. I think it's kind of a I don't know. It discourages people from getting involved, because, like, for me, I have way too much ADHD to ever sit down and learn how to code. But I'm really enjoying 1v1 PKing. I'm enjoying dueling. And I would not be able to enjoy dueling and find this new way to engage in the game if I didn't have people who could help me, figure out what I need to do in terms of coding. Like, asking people to learn coding language and stuff to be involved in that kind of thing is I don't know. I just find that there's no need to be that exclusive about it, I don't think.
That's fair. I think it's kind of a mixed bag, just because I think a lot of people, myself included, are a little resistant to the idea of pre-packaging full-on 1v1 offenses and just.
I think you do
people, but I do think, like, in terms of, like, there are specific situations, I don't think there's anything at all wrong with helping people with their coding, with helping write something for them. I just think in terms of general distribution, it's a lot iffier.
I think honestly the way that we have it right now in Sunder, because, like, Templar has 1v1 routes, but they're not perfect. They're sort of basic routes, like we've said. So like, I think that distributing basic routes, I think, is totally fine. I totally get somebody who's developed like a really great route being like, I'm not adding this to a public thing. I think it's one thing when it's like a basic AF route, and it's another thing when it's like this delicately crafted, very specific to you route. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing about Sunder, even if you look at the basic 1v1 routes, Sunder deliberately does not track certain things that are important for 1v1 because it is a group focused thing. That's
Yeah.
my understanding. Again, not speaking for anyone else. It's a
Right.
group focused thing generally, and I'm happy to help people with it. But since it's based around group stuff, it's not needed for it by default.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely, yeah. Sunder is definitely not something that you can just plug in and be like number one on sect. It's a good baseline.
Yeah.
You've got stuff that'll help you. You could probably win a couple of things, but you're going to have to put a lot of work into it to make sure that you can actually be what I would consider a dangerous combatant.
Yeah, like the thing about it is that makes it a good baseline is it has that whole fight, it has that whole queue system built inside of it, like how to make the
Yes.
script work, and it has the limb damage tracking built into it. Things like that, having those things built for you already, and then being able to build your own things off of that is the biggest thing about Sunder, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly.
But like what I was gonna say that I find fascinating, and I've always found this a little fascinating, is it feels like when it comes to limb classes, it's like it's funny because like when people try to make automated offenses for limb classes, you're doing things in a set path usually because it's automated, so it's kind of not as good as being unpredictable because parry and limb damage are like, you're being able to predict where they're going to go next. And so I found it really fascinating that once I kind of took the predictability out of the limb damage thing, that like I was able to actually do things to people and not get wrecked immediately, like it's just really cool to read because also I know from experience that people have different ways of parrying too. Like Jeremy, for example, has his own parry system that he's worked on for years, and it's way different than like standard Sunder parry and so forth. So it's like good to be able to adjust to that on the fly as a limb damage class, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
that's just kind of how I approach it now. Like I think being semi-manual is important for limb classes, at least for me. But anyway, we've talked for a while here. We've been going about 2.5 hours now.
Yeah.
But is there anything anybody else would like to talk about before we wrap up here?
I have managed to keep from getting disconnected from Final Fantasy, so I'm good to go whenever.
Well, there you go. And also, Iced won the giveaway for people that missed it, and I already transferred him the credits. So
Can't believe
congratulations.
he won but didn't come in here like he said he was going to. Rude.
Well, he
Lying on set, lying on camera.
It seems like he woke up late, so
That's true, yeah. I'm just picking on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an interesting week. Not as breakneck for me at least, and maybe Iaku too, as like some of the weeks prior. Obviously busier for certain people than others, but still a really awesome week. Can't complain. Things were interesting. We got to talk about some stuff. There, in regards to the stream, there's one guest that we're gonna try to have on at some point that I feel like I can mention, and that's Aline.
God, yes.
Aline has agreed to come on at some point, but due to the way her time zone is in comparison to most other people, we would probably have to do it on a Saturday, probably about 11 a.m. Eastern. And we are going to do that at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this Saturday or, next Saturday, I mean, or some other Saturday. I know Christmas is on a Saturday too, so we probably won't do it on the 25th, but maybe we could either do it on the 11th or the 18th. I think would be good. And then there's another guest that I've mentioned to some people off stream in the server that we're going to have on that wants to be on, but I want it to be a bit of a surprise because they're not sure which weekend they want to be on yet. But that one will be awesome. I'm sure we'll probably get quite the turnout for that one. But those are the things we have planned. Also, I think on our weekday stream next week, not this coming week starting tomorrow, but the following week, I have Tuesday off work. I finally got another weekday off work, so we'll probably try to do a Tuesday stream. And our anonymous benefactor who gave us 1,000 credits months ago to be able to give away to you all has volunteered to anonymously give away some stockings that day. So we'll be doing stocking giveaways that day. That'll be fun. So
Right on.
yeah, stuff's coming up, and I'm sure we're going to get even more crazy stuff in game here soon. Who knows what it's gonna be next time? So here,
Yeah, I pretty much look forward to every event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's happened since
Everything's been a slam dunk.
Yeah, and I mentioned something that hopefully didn't sound like too much criticism earlier, but again, I want to stress, it's all been good since recent changes and everything. So I'm looking forward to whatever comes next.
Yep, me too. You got anything you'd like to say in parting, Isia? She might still be dealing with her child, but
With a munchkin, yeah.
yeah.
House was full. I found some guacamole when I was up.
Oh, well, there you go.
No, I don't really think I have anything else. I think we've talked about all of it.
Okay. Well, it was quite the stream. Let's all get out of here. I think I'm hungry. I should probably go make myself food for first time today. And
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll be back next time. I don't know if it's going to be. We might do one on Wednesday this week. We'll see. I have a bit of a doctor's appointment that day, but I don't think it'll take all day. And then, yeah, we might be back during the week this week. Definitely will be on the 14th, though. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye.
All right, sounds good to me.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.